Hey kids, it's Old Man shouting at clouds, and now with others too. Chatting about the CFL is what they're going to do. Some have no contacts and others have no clues. Everyone will tell us all their quirky football views. Hear what Old Man and others know. It's the CFL Outsiders Show.
Hey GT. What are we going to do this week?
Same thing we do every week, Old Man. Take over the CFL.
Hey, kids. Welcome back to another episode of the CFL Outsiders. I remain, as always, your 100% unbiased, completely impartial co-host, Old Man Shouting at Clouds. Joining me tonight, as usual, is GT.
Hey.
And MJ.
Hey, how's it going?
All right. Well, unfortunately, this week we have to start with some serious topics. We like to have fun with the football, but there's some stuff that needs to be talked about this week. First of all, today the CFL put out a statement on the death of Milt Steggall's son, Chase Stegall. It said, "It is difficult to imagine a more devastating tragedy than the loss of a young son or daughter. The hearts of everyone in the CFL and our legions of fans go out to our dear friend Milt Stegall and the entire Stegall family upon the sudden passing of his son Chase Stegall. A soccer player at DePaul University in Chicago, Chase is already being remembered as a gifted athlete, a kind-hearted friend, and someone who had a positive effect on all who knew him. Qualities synonymous with the Stegall name here in Canada." And we would like to add to that from us here at the CFL Outsiders, condolences to Milt and the entire Stegall family. Words are never enough in a tragedy like this. There is nothing we can do to lessen your grief, and know that the hearts of millions of CFL fans are with you. Okay, so sad news there. And the other one is, again, serious, because I feel I have to say this. I try and keep this lighthearted. We love the CFL, but sometimes there's things more important than the CFL, and I have a statement I'm going to make here. First of all, for context, let me say, both times the current American president has been in office, his actions have encouraged the racists in their society to become vocally bold and demean others. I was saddened to see the same thing happen here in Canada during the broadcast of the Edmonton Elks' last preseason game. I'm here as Old Man. The man behind Old Man is George Hyde. I want to make that clear. He is the one making this statement. The former name of the Edmonton Elks is a racist slur. Those seeking to reintroduce it into the CFL are showing themselves as racist by their actions. This is a black stain on the reputation of our league. I call on the other 8 owners to step in and put a stop to this. Institute a new policy. No racist signage on display in any team's facilities. No public uttering of racist slurs by anyone associated with the CFL, backed up by serious fines. I ask all CFL fans who feel the same to contact the CFL and support this proposal. To Elks fans, I say this. I know it feels like our fandom and the performance of our teams are a matter of life and death at times. A big win just fills us with joy. A terrible loss crushes our spirits. We are so closely interwoven that criticizing our cherished franchises does not come easy at all. Still, I would ask you to consider what message you are sending to your children and the community in general by financially supporting an openly racist organization. That's it. That's what I've got. That's the serious stuff done. Let's get it out of our system and try and get a little more fun. So I'm going to start with the fun by I got a riddle for the two of you. What does Old Man and Philip Gagnon have in common?
Bad knees.
Well, probably. Mine are much worse than his. And we did both play O-line, although him at a much higher level. No, I'm talking about torn bicep.
Oh, no.
Oh, yep. What's the other one this week? tore the first one 20 years ago at a slightly inebriated at an all-inclusive down in the Dominican, arm wrestling a bunch of guys. Tore this one this week trying to pull the sheet out from underneath me in bed. Aging really takes you downhill. Yes. So old man now has triceps and monoceps, no biceps.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. And the thing is, because I did the first one, I know that if you tear it down low on the elbow thing, then they'll fix it. If you tear it up high, which is what both mine are, they say, unless you're a professional athlete or need your full strength for work, we just let it go.
Oh.
So that's been my week. On the upside, I did also get new glasses so I can see without squinting near so bad.
There you go.
All righty. And I've also said the other slight projects, if anybody on Blue Sky might notice, I've been doing my best to entice the American fans to come watch the CFL because a lot of them are annoyed with the NFL right now, and it's a good way to grow our league. So if you're on any of the platforms, maybe give that a try. Tell them. I've been saying things like, you know what? You get to watch all the games. There's no overlap, so you're picking your fantasy players on what you see rather than stats and what the experts say. Things like that. All right. Good. And then moving on to something else that's good news related that I wanted to talk about. I mentioned on the first episode the CFL Fans Fight Cancer have merchandise this year. Their goal is 100,000. They want to raise 100,000 for the fight against cancer this year. Anything you can do will certainly help them out. It's CFLFansFightCancer.com, and I went and looked at it. The logos are absolutely fantastic. They don't have much. They've got a hoodie, a T-shirt, and a pin. But the logos that they've done are beautiful. They're open until June 15th. You've got to get your order in by then. But I'm doing a bunch of my Christmas shopping early this year. I'm getting these for things in the people in the family. And then the other thing that I'm going to say, this is for the folks that are running CFL Fans Fight Cancer. You don't have any kid sizes. I got grandkids. Think about that for next year. More sales. All righty. And that's enough of me yapping. GT, you were going to talk a little bit about the new promotional video the CFL released this week.
Well, I saw one, and all I saw it on the Stampeders site. That's where I saw it. And it was, keep it unreal, red and white. And I thought it was the new CFL one. Now I'm maybe led to believe that it's only the team one, because I thought that's strange that they would do their own, and or the CFL would be red and white this year. It was black and white last year. So I'm a little confused. Maybe somebody can help me with this, because I only did see one.
Right. So, as the resident Instagram user here, I saw all of them. I know I harp on the CFL for, not marketing. It was nice to see them actually do, a proper marketing video with tying in all of the teams, and all the teams did a similar marketing video. So if anyone hasn't seen these, they're all shot in black and white, and they just have different shots of, the CFL's one, I'll admit, I only watched it once. I watched the other ones several times because I wanted to write them down. For example, the Stamps one, it's their words were next level, horse-powered, and red and white. And then, the Riders were loud, green, and proud. The Bombers were personal, cold-blooded. And when it was cold-blooded, they just showed, a winter scene, a field with snow. And then it says, for the W. The Elks were northern, with the northern lights, and then it said hungry and double E. And the Lions were elevated with some mountain shots and gritty and local. The Argos said historic in style and home. The Ticats were tough, and it showed some steel workers, and then it showed unpredictable and wild. The Redblacks was Our Nation, Bank Street, and Relentless. And the Alouettes was in French, and I relied on Instagram translation. But I think it said flying, unique, and overexcited. I know for sure it said flying and unique. And during the unique, they had the air horns. So it's just kind of yay! They must have shot that promo before they got banned.
Yeah.
But it's really nice. I think most of them, really showcased kind of what those teams are about. And the CFL's their words were ours, fast, wild, raw, tough, glorious, true north, strong and free.
So the interesting thing then is if I went to the CFL site, which I just did, why isn't that top of page? And why can't you then click over all of them, or it just runs one after another so you see all of them?
Yeah, so some teams had them just pinned to their profile. Like on Instagram, you can pin them to your profile, so they were like the first 3 posts are pinned. Some of the teams I had to dig down into like their third row of posts to find them, and then the CFL's wasn't pinned. And so, well, I'm not on Twitter, and I know that everyone still posts there, but I refuse to be on there. Nothing's posted on Blue Sky, but so I just have to rely on Instagram for all my CFL news.
Yes, well, like I said, I'm not a fan of Twitter either, but I had to open an account to get into this fantasy league that I'm representing us in. Mind you, I'm not following a lot of people outside of that league, but I didn't see anything posted there with it. I certainly didn't see it on Blue Sky, and I think the CFL has to learn that social media doesn't mean you can put it on one platform and you're done. There's a lot of people that never used Instagram. So why not, like GT says, put it on your website, make it front and center. I only saw the one for the league, and frankly, I was not inspired. It seemed slow and kind of draggy, and I'm going to be talking about something in a minute that was completely different. I'll have to see if I can find outside of Instagram the actual ones from the teams, because it sounds like they're better. But the overall one didn't impress me. I
should say there's clearly some teams that did better than others, and they obviously had their own marketing people doing them. And I don't know if the CFL got final say on the cuts or not, or what happened, or they just kind of gave them the theme and just told them to run it.
Yeah.
And I understand going to Instagram and chasing or going there. That's quote unquote where the kiddies are. Again, as Oldman said, it's how hard is it to hit click and you post everywhere? It should be on your own website. Like, I understand going to Instagram. I don't understand going only to Instagram.
Now, I don't know. I mean, I'll give the CFL a pass on the quality of what they tried. They tried. They took a swing and a miss. To me, it didn't work, but at least they've got it out there. Hopefully, they'll do better. We'll see. We've had lots of things, lots of suggestions for them. Maybe they'll listen to us.
Yeah. You can tell the teams that wanted to do it because theirs was pinned to their profile, and the other ones who were like, I had to post this, and it's down on the third row now already.
And you can tell the teams that are smashing it on social media because they're probably the same ones. Yeah. Anyway, anything else on that? Or
nice try, CFL. You tried.
Yeah. Like I said, I appreciate the effort, but whether it's good or bad, put it where we can all see it, please. I had something else here quick. I got contacted on Blue Sky in the last week by a fellow who's a filmmaker down in the States, and he was telling me about this, so I just thought I'd throw it up there. They're doing a biopic on Armanti Edwards. This is about his background as a quarterback for the Appalachian State Mountaineers from 2006 to 2009. He tried out, I think, with Hamilton and then the Riders. He got traded by the Riders to Toronto for Peter Diakowski, who was an O-lineman. And then he was close to 1,000 yards for a couple of seasons, got it in the last season there, like I said, got that Grey Cup. But the story is more sort of the story of his life and how that team, his life was a little bit rough, and how that team beat a much higher ranked team during their, I think it was his final year there. So look for that as housemoneythemovie.com. And once you get on the website, I've checked all this out because I wanted to make sure that I wasn't sending somewhere with viruses or anything. It all appears to be good. Once you get there, you use the code money$14 to see the trailer. And I'll put all that in the show notes. But I'd recommend going and seeing at least the trailer. I'll tell you that when I said during the CFL thing being a little dull, the trailer there gave me goosebumps. That was the feel the CFL should have had, and they didn't get there. So think it over, give it a quick try. Anyway, like I said, all the stuff will be in the show notes. Here's another thing for us to talk about, because it's that season again. CFL, yay! It's also another season. Wildfires. Oh, you were going to talk a bit about this, MJ.
Yeah, I'm just reporting in from the prairies. My window's closed. We have a smoke advisory. It's above 7 today. Wildfire season has commenced. There was a lot of talk about the Riders game this past weekend because the air quality there was above 11. The CFL always says that they have their independent air quality sensors field level. I just remember when it was either last year or the year before in Edmonton, the air quality in Edmonton, according to the radar, it was over 12. And then there's, oh no, it's below 8, we can play, and they played. That same game in Regina, I'm sure the air quality was not below 8 for them to play. And I think my dad makes a joke. He's always like, well, you should be a BC Lions fan because then you would never have this problem. We're always inside. And I'm like, oh, all right. Yes, you've made your point. But I think this is just something, like, let's just be honest. Wildfire season is only going to get worse every year. I honestly don't even know how there is still boreal forest to burn. But here we are. What's happening right now in Saskatchewan and Manitoba is devastating, and smoke carries. Like, it's all in the U.S. right now. And so how is the CFL, who is an outdoor league with a very short season, going to handle wildfire season? I printed out these rules. I looked them up. If we cancel this game for wildfire, we're just going to have this little two-possession shootout prior to their next meeting, kind of like overtime rules. Depending on who was winning and when they called the game or anything. But, I mean, are they actually going to do that? Do you think they're actually going to cancel a game for air quality control? Or are they just going to make players play? And is the CFL Players Association ever going to say, no, we're not playing? And I'm not sure how to handle this or what's going to happen. But, I mean, they have to figure out something.
Yeah.
I think it's going to have to be pretty thick and visible and actually there before they do anything about it and before they get to the point where it is like lightning. Because if you remember, even a few years ago, they had to finally, come up with a policy that lightning within a certain radius now cancels the game. And before that, it was just right up to the minute of the game, and then they would even then play through some of it. So I think it's really going to come down to being within the vicinity, the actual fire being within the vicinity before they'll get to that point. Because I don't know how they can reschedule anything. And if they start going to mini games and stuff, the integrity of the season's gone. And there's just no way they can expand or extend the season and mess with TV schedules and everything else. I just don't know how they can do it.
Yeah, I see the same thing. It is really difficult. I mean, the problem is the particles in the smoke are not good for your lungs. It's not a safe sort of environment to be playing football in. And the games are one thing, but how are teams practicing when you're outside during the week? I know last year teams had moved a lot of their practices indoors. This may be something that there just isn't an easy fix. I first thought, well, maybe the league could even do something bizarre, like put a period in July and August where all the West teams play in the East or BC. But then 2 years ago, Ontario and Nova Scotia were full of these fires. So I don't know that there's an answer. I hope that the league is being serious about it. I know that you can get different air qualities at different levels. And maybe some of these places like Mosaic, which is basically a bit of a bowl underground level, maybe the smoke doesn't settle there as much. I don't know, but all that as a fan, all that I can do is trust that in the end the CFL will put their player safety ahead of it. And it's hard to expand the season at all, but maybe if you know that this is going on, you put something in where you try and push the season ahead 1 week. That's getting awful close to the NFL draft, and how do you get your draft into that? But do that and then leave a week by from the end of the season into the playoffs, so teams can get healthy and get rested in the playoffs. And it also gives you a week that if a couple of teams get games that get canceled because of this, they make them up at that point in the season. It's the only thing I could think of.
Actually, every new stadium has to have a roof.
Yeah, and that doubles the price, triples it something. I don't know. But yeah, but anybody who's out there, though, anybody out there in this smoke that's going on now, wherever you are, mask up. It's not a wussy thing to do. This can take years off a person's life if it gets bad enough. The science behind it says it's not to be trifled with. So definitely mask up if you're out in that smoke. I don't know that we can beat this to death anymore, though. I'm going to move.
You can't plan for events that may or may not happen. That's the issue, right? You can leave yourself some leeway. You can have some parameters.
Yeah, and may or may not happen anytime through the season at any location.
Yeah. Exactly.
So, yeah. Oh, well, some good news. I saw an article this week, and I kind of glanced over it the first couple of days and then went back and realized this is amazing. CFL apparently gave $4.5 million to amateur football in Canada last year. Think about that. That's getting close to the salary cap of a team. That's a lot of money being put back into future players, and I applaud the CFL for that. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. That's something that they've been doing it, but haven't made a big enough part of their press and so on to let people know. And yeah, it's hugely important. It's great that amount of money is going back to amateur football.
I get constant advertising for NFL camps for my kid all the time. So they need to do something because the NFL is pushing hard in Canada.
Yeah. The CFL has to learn that even though we're Canadian, it's okay to brag. Tell people how good you are. Get it out there. The next thing we were going to talk about was there were some fairly surprising releases when the cut downs were made this week. You were going to talk about that a bit, GT.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on it because, final cuts are always interesting across the league, and there's 20 to 30 players on each team that gets cut, and we obviously not all of them are worthy talking about, but I thought a few names across the league and each team were pretty interesting. Walter Fletcher was the first one that I heard about in Montreal, so I thought I would start and just kind of run east to west and jump in where you want, guys. But here's who I had on the Montreal list. Walter Fletcher as the starting running back last year, and people talking about him as that consummate, does everything and does it well type of back, and finally getting his shot. And here he is, got a cut after preseason. I must say, when I watched that game on Friday night, I was very impressed by both of the guys they kept. Also, they cut Jonathan Senecal, which was disappointing after me talking him up last week. In Ottawa, I did see two guys added to the practice roster I thought were interesting. A.C. Lee, who was a linebacker in BC and then came over to Ottawa. I think he's a pretty good player. And then Ethan Jordan from Laurier, a receiver. That was Taylor Alger's number one receiver last year, over the last couple of years, and is, I think, a really great receiver. They kept him on the practice roster, and I think he could get a shot, given that they're still relatively weak, and if they need a Canadian receiver in any way, shape, or form, he's the guy that's going to step in, and once he does, I think he could stick around for a while. In Toronto, man, wow, after losing so many players, it was crazy, the cuts. It started earlier in the week when they cut Quincy Moget before the game even played on Friday night. And then afterwards, everybody was talking about Kadeem Carey, but I was more surprised that Kevin Brown was cut than that. That's two of their running back room gone. Two big players, obviously, two well-known players. So I was pretty surprised at that. Cameron Dukes, after the build-up and so on last week, they must have saw the same thing. So they went with Tucker Horn, and Cameron Dukes is now looking for a new home. I don't think he'll be out there long. I'm pretty sure he'll sign with somebody fairly quickly. And then Deontay Evans as well, a veteran defensive back who didn't look great in that last game. Hamilton, I haven't seen their full list yet. For some reason, it wasn't on the CFL website. In Winnipeg, I didn't see any cuts of significance, but I did see James Evans, a global punter that they drafted really high. They did cut him. Now I see that he signed in Saskatchewan. And then Reggie White Jr., who was a pretty big acquisition from Montreal as a free agent receiver, as they rebuild that receiving core in Winnipeg, he moved to the PR. So I don't know if that's an injury thing still, because he was injured all of last year. Saskatchewan, no major cuts that I saw that went, okay, there's a name I recognize. But I did see the biggest discussion from last week was Mario Alford, and they kept him on the full roster and moved the guy that everybody was talking about, McRae, to the PR. So that was a little surprising. In Calgary, Logan Bonner, we see who won the quarterback there. I guess it's going to be Love going forward. So that answers your question from last week. Cam Eccles was the second receiver they cut, because they also cut Ishmael Hyman earlier in the week before that. So that's two receivers that were rookies last year, but both made an impact for the Stampeders. And also, they kept one of the two global punters that they drafted, but kept the other one on the PR. So I think both of those guys still are battling it out, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them both play back and forth till they finally figure it out. Edmonton, I guess the big one was Alexander Hollins after coming over from BC and the injury. I wonder if that injury is not 100%, and that's the reason that he didn't make the cut. And then because we talked about him last week, Jason Chachinski, the quarterback turned receiver from University of Manitoba, was also one of their cuts. And then in BC, there was nobody of significance that I saw that got cut. Although for some reason, I will say, people are somehow still enamored with Rice and John, and I don't know why. I was really high on him when they first drafted him. He went to, I believe it was the Jets camp, spent a year there, and has never recovered and never looked like a receiver that was going to turn into anything. He's just a big body. I wasn't surprised that they cut him, and I'm not sure why there's so much love out there for him. The only other thing I wanted to talk about quickly was the fact that I noticed in the cuts this year, we talked about this, where players that they send back to school, that return to university, then next year they if you want them back, they are then a counter as a not a non-counter in your training camp roster. There was a couple of those, but I also noticed they were now retired. So I'm not sure if that's the get around for that, or because only the Stampeders listed them as returning to school, but even they listed them as retired returning to school. So I wonder if that's a get around of that rule already, because if you make a rule, somebody will get around it, right? So there you go. So there was a couple guys in Saskatchewan, Seth Henneby, I know that he's a linebacker that people are very high on, and Eric Anderson, an offensive lineman, both of those guys. And in Calgary, as you called him, the darling of the combine, Max von Mielhofer, he's returned to school, as well as Matt Stokman, a lineman from, I think it was Manitoba, that Calgary sent back as well. So those are just some of the big names that I saw that I thought were pretty interesting, and some of them will re-sign right away. Some of them will re-sign as injury replacements over the course of the year, and some of them we might never see again.
Where's Cameron Dukes going?
Interesting. I think he might end up maybe Ottawa. I wouldn't be surprised in Ottawa. I think he fits that system, and I think he's a better quarterback than Matt Schultz. If you're looking for a number two, I'd cut Schultz at a second. No offense to Matt Schultz, but I'd cut him in a second for Cameron Dukes, and I think that's probably the most likely spot.
Yeah, I heard some rumblings about BC today, and dropping Jeremiah to third, and
I don't see Jeremiah playing at all. I think Jeremiah is strictly a player's coach, quarterback coach with a uniform. I don't see. Yeah. Again, he played a couple of minutes in that exhibition game on the weekend and looked horrible. And he literally played a couple of minutes, looked horrible, and they went back to Chase Price immediately. My mom, like the first game when I saw her that weekend, she was like, the first thing she said to me, she was like, it was so nice to see Jeremiah playing. Chelsea has his fans. Hey. You know what? I know. Like, it just happens, right? We're gonna start calling them LL Jeremiah. Ladies love Jeremiah. Yeah, right? They do. Get it. They do. For some reason, he's got the lady love going, but I'm not sure he can play. Yeah. Sometimes I think that Hamilton and Toronto just like to sign each other's players just for, like, the chaos factor, and so I'm like... Yeah. Part of me wouldn't be surprised if Cameron Dukes ended up on the Ticats roster. I don't think it's going to happen, but honestly, they love to do it, so it wouldn't surprise me at all.
To me, the other thing that would be, it depends how high the Bombers are on Terry Wilson. Because there's another landing spot that could open up. There are a few things that I would add on what you said with it. I don't know if Hollins is still injured or if it's just become something where it's got in his head, but if he's had two teams pass on him in the same off season, he'll probably not. I don't think he signs anywhere unless someone is really desperate for receivers. That seems a bit off to me. The stuff in Saskatchewan, which I may follow a little bit, there were the Herdman-Reed brothers, which didn't seem like a big thing, but they were good, solid special teamers, and they were played a lot in rotation at linebacker with different packages, so hopefully they've got someone to replace them. And the last thing there is, of course, the Dre McKay, isn't it? I think, yeah, the returner that wowed everybody on that. The last play he ran in that exhibition game, he came off nicked. So I'm wondering if he's on the practice roster because he's not quite 100% and we'll get Mario for the first couple of games and then make the change.
Yeah, but isn't it that you can claim, any team can claim a guy off of a practice roster? So that's pretty risky. I mean, it would make more sense to put him on the one game or on the one game injured list if they were keeping him around that way.
It depends on what's going on there because, as I understand it, you can claim off of another team's practice roster, but you have to immediately put him on your roster for the next game. He's injured. That slows it down a bit. And it's not an automatic. It's not like a trade. I didn't realize this until they were talking during the games this week. A player on a practice roster that is picked up by another team has the option of refusing it. Depending on what they're saying to him in Saskatchewan, he may be perfectly happy there.
Yeah,
I don't know, but those are the ones that to me were sort of the main ones that were out there. I'm with you on Rice and John. I don't know where that hype came from. I don't know how he did on special teams. I never really noticed that much, and he's been a third or fourth backup option for anywhere he's gone. So that's about all that sort of springs to mind right away that you didn't already cover off. Are we done?
That's it.
Okay, because now we get to have fun. Yay. We're going to play the game. This is the CFL preseason futures. So we'll have to come to agreement on these and put them in. And just so you know, I've opened on the CFL Game Zone a team as the CFL Outsiders. So we'll have this. And then because there's three of us, every week when we make our game picks, we're going to have a consensus. So I'm also going to put us in on Pick'em and see how we do.
All right.
Okay. All right.
So here we go. The first one. Which team will win the Eastern Final? And, of course, you've got the four Eastern teams, or we can pick Western Division crossover.
East Final, Montreal.
Okay.
I have the Argos, even though I don't want to.
Oh, we're going to have to argue down on this then because we're going three ways. I don't know why, but I figure the Redblacks are the team of destiny this year. I see them doing it. So
I mean, this is different. Like, cause I ranked 4 for like the standings, but then winning the final is different.
Yeah.
So maybe it is Montreal. No, I don't know.
I just think Montreal is the most stable team in the league. I think they're the most balanced team in the league. I think they have the best defense in the league. And I think they have, the only issue they have is Davis Alexander, I should say, two first names, growing into the position. And I think by then he will have grown into the position. And they have so many weapons and stuff for him to throw to that I think they can make up for his growing pain. When it comes down to the fall, it's defense, and I still think they have the best defense, most solid defense of anybody, even Edmonton. I think it's Montreal.
We're locked in there. MJ, any chance I can get you to come over to Ottawa with me?
Okay, so this is my Montreal thing. It's going to depend on if Marc-Antoine Dequoy stays healthy, because he missed a lot of games last year with a concussion. And it depends if McLeod Bethel-Thompson can keep a lid on it. Because if he starts blustering and starts having a meltdown,
Danny O'Connell.
Yeah, honestly, I don't even know why they traded for him. I don't get it. I don't understand it. That's why I don't know if I can pick them because he is such a wild card.
Well, let me say this then. I'm of the opinion that if Davis Alexander doesn't get there, that MBT will be put in at some point to get them into the playoffs at least. And MBT with a defense and an offense that can work is a scary player. So and I think a lot of what he was doing last year, the sounding off, was trying to take pressure off of the team in that situation they were in. I think that was intentional because he wasn't so much like that in other places. He was always a very strong supporter of the CFL. So if I have to change my vote, which I think I'm having to, we're going with Montreal.
Okay, put Montreal down.
There we go.
Just remember the JT. Just remember that we picked yours the first.
Yeah. Okay, so now we go on to the West, and of course we've got the 5 teams or an Eastern Division crossover.
There's no East Division crossover.
No.
No, but these are the options we've got. It'll get important later when they start going with players. So what do you think for the West?
Somebody lead. I'm going Winnipeg.
I put Winnipeg.
Okay, well, then that's where we're at. I put it at, frankly, it's going to depend on the regular season. Because if Saskatchewan gets the first place in the home game, I see them going through. If they have to play another Western final in Winnipeg, it gets tough. But
if they have to play in Winnipeg, they're done.
Yeah.
Again. Like, it's just,
yeah, that's true. We'll talk more about that when we talk about the teams maybe, but there. So now we go on to a bit more of the props types things. Will a quarterback throw for 5,000 or more yards this season?
So Bo did it last year, right?
Yeah.
Bo did it
only
last
one.
year.
And he only missed basically less than a full game. So that's part of it. Does somebody stay healthy enough to do it? There were only two players that stayed healthy all last year, him and Mayer. And Mayer didn't get there because of his performance.
I think Trey's going to run more yards. He's not going to throw that many. Bo, it depends on if Tim White will actually catch his passes. Maybe if Kenny Lawler's there, maybe. But I honestly expect Bo and Scott to butt heads again a bit this year. I don't think Davis is going to do it. I don't think Drew Brown's going to do it.
Yeah, but there's Nathan. There's VA. There's Trevor if he plays a whole season.
VA injuries. I'm not sure he can play a whole season. That's my biggest.
That's the whole thing.
If he played all 18. If he played all 18 games, I could see him doing it, but I don't know whether he'll play all 18.
I know what my vote is, so you each pick yes or no, and if it's a tiebreaker, I'll break it.
I'll say no.
No.
We're all in agreement. Okay, because that's where I was going. It could happen, but the odds aren't great. Which player will win the MOP for 2025? And our choices are Brady Oliveira, Justin McInnes, Bo Levi Mitchell, Roland Milligan Jr., Nathan Rourke, or other. Which could be a safe choice because if it's not one of those five, there's a lot of others who could get there.
Oh, you don't have to specify who the other is?
No, we just have to say other. And I mean, you got VA out there. What we said, if Calgary makes the playoffs, it's because VA was an MOP, or at least I said that last week. There's a bunch of others. There's a couple on this list that I do not see making it no matter what. So what do you feel?
Oh, I'm definitely going other.
Okay.
It's other. I don't think they're going to give it to Brady no matter what he does.
Yeah. Well, it's not going to be McInnes. He's not going to have the season he had last year. And it's not going to be Milligan because he's a defensive player. The only reason he had a chance to do it last year was because there wasn't any real quarterback other than Bo that performed. So here we're going. We're going others. The safe pick. Okay. Will a player have 12 or more sacks during the regular season?
No.
Last year, there was a bunch tied at 8. Before that, I can't remember the last time somebody didn't get 12.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm going yes.
Yes, really? Everyone was so bad last year. Who is going to do that?
Serezna could do it. Malden could, right? Carter could do it in Ottawa. Mustafa could do it in Montreal. Yeah. Let's see.
If Betts comes back in BC.
Betts could do it in BC. Yeah. You know, or Malade could do it in Calgary. Yeah, there's enough guys.
I'm going to mention a name that nobody's mentioning, but if he gets in the full regulation, Habakkuk Baldonado in Saskatchewan. He came on at the end of last season, something tremendous. So we're saying, we got faith in the D line. We just don't have faith in the quarterbacks because they're not passing for 5,000 yards because they're going to be on the ground the whole time. Sacks everywhere. Okay. Will Winnipeg's Brady Oliveira have over or under 2,000 combined receiving and rushing yards?
The ad for this, Brady was like, yes, I will. And I'm like, Brady, I don't know. He had like 1,800 and 1,829 combined yards last year. This is my drama. The new Winnipeg OC, how is he going to... I don't know how he works with Brady.
Bingo. That's what I'm thinking.
He's his running back coach.
But even still... I know, but
He
even
loves it.
still, I don't know how he runs a whole offense, though.
Yeah, and if he overuses Brady, then that can be just as bad.
I think he's going to be under. I think they're going to use him a lot, but I still think they're going to be under because I don't think they're going to be successful. I think they're just going to. I think they're just going to struggle on offense.
Yeah, the only way I see this coming true is they're struggling to make sure that they're either fighting for first or second place or something all season. They're in an awful lot of really close games with a slight lead in the second half, and Brady doesn't miss any to injury. So I think no. I think we're in agreement there.
Yeah, Brady, prove us wrong.
Okay. Which team will have the best regular season record? We've got all 9 teams to pick from. I'll jump in here because I'll be the homer to the other man that inhabits this body with me, who's the big Saskatchewan fan. I think Saskatchewan, but not just because of that homer influence screaming in the back of my skull. I think that if their O-line holds up, and that's the big question, but if it does, they're probably in the top 2 or 3 teams in the league, and they're playing in a division that's going to be easier to win games. The East teams are all going to be knocking each other off, and that's going to make it very hard for someone to come out of that East division with 14, 15 wins. I could easily see the low team in the East having 8 wins and the top team having 11.
I'm with you. I think it's going to be a very much a parity league this year, all the way across.
Wow.
I have so many. I had Ottawa and I crossed it out, and I put Winnipeg, and I was big question mark, and I have Montreal with a little box around it with a question mark. No. I have Elks written over on the side. I
could be.
Well, you guys both said Riders. That's fine.
Okay. We got faith in you, Coach Mace. Yeah.
It's in as Riders?
It's in as Riders. We can change it if you want. But
I'm in Montreal. But I think you're right. I think the East is going to... remember all those years the East was, the worst? Every team was awful except for Montreal, and now every team is good. I mean, it's good, but it's hard for us to pick these.
Got parity there, and they have got some people that play nasty, hard, not mean, but hard football. If a team comes out of the East with anywhere near intact at the end of the season, then they'll walk through whatever else is left probably, but I don't know if that's going to happen. So anyway, which player? Oh, this is an interesting one. Which player will be the first to score a touchdown in the regular season? And because the first game is Ottawa at the Riders, that's our choices. They're not even assuming that the game could be all field goals, which is always a possibility. So we can check from the Riders, we can pick either Samuel Emlis or Tommy Stevens. From the Redblacks, either Justin Hardy or Eugene Lewis. Or we can pick another Ottawa player or another Saskatchewan player.
Who's Ottawa's backup? Who's their? Is it Caleb Evans? Is he their QB?
No, he's Montreal. They'll probably be running Crum in short yardage.
Oh, Crum. Oh, okay. So.
Yeah, no, I've got Tommy Stevens.
Yeah. I just am trying to figure out if they're just going to have, someone's going to try and do a deep ball and then try to have to do, a few little dump passes and, punch it in, or if there's just going to be a little dump pass in just to get things started. But I'm thinking that it might just be a push in for the first one, so I'll go Stevens as well.
Sure. And I won't argue that because you could go with another player, but who knows which team scores first, so that doesn't help a lot. And there's a lot of ways that you end up with Stevens doing it. It's not just somebody has to be stopped at the 1 yard line. Pass interference in the end zone sets that up. There's a lot of different things. So, okay, that's where we're going. Tommy Stevens is locked in. The next one, will a kicker make a field goal longer than 60 yards?
Absolutely.
It's Castillo or no one.
Yes.
Exactly.
And he's playing again. So are you good with yes, MJ? Because I think we have consensus here. My question is, will he kick one over 65 yards?
Yeah.
Okay, and now the biggie. Who wins the Grey Cup?
Not Winnipeg. It's a process of elimination. Who did they say was winning the East Final? Montreal?
We said Montreal, but I guess that would put us down to those two teams, but we can go off book here if we want to, too.
So we have Montreal and Saskatchewan in the Grey Cup. That's who we've picked.
Yeah. I'll say if we're picking between those two in Winnipeg, mind you, that everybody's going to be against Saskatchewan. In Winnipeg, I say Saskatchewan wins that one. When I'm filling this one out, it's not going to be either of those teams that I pick, but that's okay. My heart is screaming, or the voice in the back of my head is screaming to say Riders, but I don't think they're going to do it. I honestly think Ottawa's the team of destiny this year. I see them walking off with it.
I'm going Montreal for one reason. If it's Montreal, Saskatchewan, it's one reason I'm going Montreal. Trevor Harris has never won 2 big games in a row in his life. And he'd have to win the Western Final, and he'd have to win the Grey Cup. He's going to choke in one of those.
Okay, so you get the tiebreaker.
Montreal.
Okay. I'm going to save this tape.
Another Marc-Antoine after-game interview just for my own viewing pleasure. So,
okay.
Montreal.
All righty. That's it. We're done.
Sorry, Cats and Stamps. We still love you.
Yes, indeed. Okay. So now we were going to move on a little bit here and talk about maybe just the teams as we see them. We're going to take a little more time on this. We don't need to get real deep into the weeds, I don't think, but just sort of where we see where they're coming. I think probably the easiest way is just sort of to work from west to east and go through there. So starting with BC, we'll take turns going first. Who wants to go first on BC?
Sure.
Nobody? Okay, I'll jump in then. And I know there's 2 of them that you'll want to go, each of you'll want to go first on, and I think MJ probably wants to go first on at least 2 teams too. So, okay, so I've said this before. I don't know if Nathan will rebound. He's a little bit in the preseason. He looked pretty good. But the NFL's broken quarterbacks before, so that is the question to me. Lions are going to go as far as Nathan can take them, and I don't know even if he has another, maybe not like his 2022, but if he has a good season, it may not be enough because they've got one new coach. It's the head coach is Pierce, but they've kept the rest of their coaching staff. They've demoted one. They had Benavides as special teams. They moved him to defensive coordinator, demoted Brian Phillips in a locker room that was divided last year. That doesn't look good to me. There's questions around that O-line. I understand. I don't know if this is true, but I heard the other night that they've had injuries again, and they may be starting 4 Americans on the O-line on this weekend. Yeah. So that's going to change it. The linebackers, maybe they're good. They're not bad if they stay healthy. And the secondary to me is questioned. So there's all of that. I don't know unless Nathan has an absolutely unbelievable season, I don't know if that would be enough for them to even make the playoffs. So that's where I'm sitting on them. I'm not optimistic.
Has Nathan pulled a VA and worked with his receivers all off season?
Yes.
Yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he's done that. I just don't think there's enough around him. I think he could play lights out again, and he just doesn't have the tools and around him to get to. I think Butler's a nice addition. I worry about their Canadian depth. I worry about their defense generally, and both lines, offense and defensive line, haven't inspired me for the last dozen years. Other than Matthew Betts 1 year, really it goes back forever before you think of anybody that's been terrifying for BC's defensive line, and their offensive line has been pretty much the weak point that everybody's talked about for a long time. And it hasn't got that much better. And then they lost it Foucault the other day for quite a while. I just read that the coach just said that he's gone for a long time, as he put it. So yeah, it's not good there, and I can't see them finishing above 4th in the division.
Mm-hmm.
I am just really, what are they doing out there? I haven't talked to a BC Lion fan yet that has a whole lot of optimism for the season, despite Rourke being back. If you're going to sign that high profile of a quarterback and make such a deal, put an O-line in front of him. Please. Give him some receivers to throw to. Please. And I think there's just some intangibles, like locker room stuff, that just aren't going to pan out. And it's just, I don't think things are going to gel how they think they're going to gel out there.
Yeah. The big problem with signing big numbers paying big numbers for a star quarterback. If If it works, it's great, but he has to be incredible because you just don't have the money to spend around him. And I don't see who they've got in the receiving core. Justin McInnes, everyone's talking about him. He had an incredible season last year on about 3 or 4 basic plays in that Massimic offense. He was good against that soft zone with his height, getting in the middle, and VA was good at hitting those throws. And that was where 80% of his yardage comes from. I don't think he's going to make 1,000 yards this season. I will be surprised if he's much over 700-800 yards. And that may be disrespectful, and if it ends up being that way, then I will eat my words, Justin. I'm sorry, but that is what I've seen. I don't see it happening. And Hatcher, will he be what he used to be? I don't know. So I think that's covered it. I'm going to make a guess at who might want to go first on Calgary, GT.
Okay, go.
Sure. I'll talk to Stampeders. Why not? You know what? They are the mystery team of the entire league. No one knows what to expect from this team. They could be absolutely horrible, or they could be the darlings and the surprise team of everybody. We just don't know. There's been so many changes that you just go in and just wait to see what happens every week because you have no idea how they're going to be. Dickinson has said he's got 12 brand new players on defense. The entire starting defense is brand new. The receivers are basically brand new. The quarterback is brand new. The coaching staff is brand new. But that doesn't mean it's all bad. It just means that it's, who knows? They have some guys that have been in preseason. They certainly have some veteran receivers, and VA plays with a chip and plays well. I mean, he can make things happen. Do I see them making a run? No, I don't. But I see them being a team that possibly every week you're like, that's the game I want to watch because who knows what's going to happen. Of all the games this weekend, the most interesting game is Hamilton-Calgary. Because you don't know what's going with either of those teams. And I think that's what Calgary's going to be all year. You're not going to be sure what you're going to get week to week.
Calgary's either going to be brilliant or it's going to be a dumpster fire, and I don't think there's any in between.
I don't see that, actually.
I
don't see this dumpster fire nonsense. I don't see it. Like, I define dumpster fire. Because I think dumpster fire means from the top down. That was last year. That, to me, was a dumpster fire there last year. Because it was a complete mess from top down.
Has that been cleaned up, though?
Yeah, I believe it has. A lot. You were talking about hot takes. Here's my hot take. Dickinson could end up coach of the year.
Okay.
That is a hot take.
Well, that's
because what a lot of people aren't talking about is the 2 guys that he fired that everybody seems to love across the league. Why did he really let them go? How much dissension was there on that coaching staff? Now Dave has 2 young pups that were nipping at his heels no longer there. Now he can say, this is what it is, and he's got his guys, his veteran coaches. They're all veteran coaches. They just haven't coached, they haven't put it all together before. But, he's got them all in order now. He doesn't have the dissension of, 2 guys that think they need or want the big job waiting anymore. So I think I think that the coaching staff and the dumpster fire coaching staff isn't an issue. It's a matter of that team coming together or not, and do they have the pieces to do it. That to me is a personnel issue, not a coaching issue.
Because I have Coach GM Dave Dickinson having a word with Coach Dave Dickinson, but. Great. I hope, but maybe Mark Killam was one of the problems, and he's out. So
always possible.
And again, I don't think either of those 2 guys are bad coaches necessarily. I just don't think it was the right situation, and it was coming to a head.
My take for whatever it's worth is this is why they say predictions are hard, especially about the future. It's you just don't know. And worst case scenario, it could be if the root of the problems was Dickinson, it could be another dumpster fire. My 2 points that I put down in my notes here were coaching and VA. If either of those goes wrong, it's not going to be a good year for Stamps fans. If what GT is saying is more correct, then I see them probably maybe going 1-5 or 2-4 in the first third of the season, and then starting to get things rolling as the players, all these new players, get their feet under them. And there's a possibility that they make the playoffs. But I think even that's long. I think that they might get, I think fourth is a good ceiling for them this year, just because of some of the other teams.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not saying that they're, my statement about Dickinson is, I said that, and I will still stand by it. He could be. I'm not saying he will be. I say he could be if some things pan out. But do I predict them to even make the playoffs? No, not necessarily. I think it would be a shock if they made the playoffs.
Well, I'll remind everyone, I wish I could remember who said this. It was an NFL coach. But if they're starting 12 new players on defense, there was a coach who said, every rookie you start costs you a game. So that doesn't look promising.
But if they start all at once, though, and it's just like one game.
This is getting a little bit maybe into the weeds with it. But I think a lot will tell in those first few games, first 6 games, not with if they're winning or losing, but are they getting better, and are they losing because they make mistakes that are rookie-type mistakes that are going to be corrected and stuff like that? Or are they just off the same page? They're not ready to compete. And we'll know by probably mid-July how that looks.
Let's be clear. When he said 12 new players, he didn't mean 12 rookies.
Yeah, I know.
12 new players. So, yeah.
I know.
So there's a lot of veterans there.
Yeah, you can't take away my chance to put the in there a little bit on that. Anyway, and look at the coincidence. That means I'm talking about Saskatchewan. Look how those work out.
Is skipping over Edmonton?
Oh, no, sorry, we did.
Our other Alberta team. This is another situation where it's going to be brilliant or it's going to be a mess. And I can't tell because I have no idea. Mark Killam's the wild card here. I have no idea how he's going to coach or how he's going to deal with players. I think Trey Ford and Cody Fajardo, that's just ticking along. No problems there. Curly Gittins, who else is still there? Dunbar, Julian Grant. I think that Trey's, they're people he's played with. Cody hasn't played with them, but I don't think Cody's going to have a problem. Their defense was good last year. I mean, a lot of those games they lost by a field goal. So can that team learn to finish games? Honestly, everyone's chitter-chattering about Rourke all the time, constantly. It's all I hear about, but I think Ford's going to outplay him.
I think my personal feeling on that is that when Trey has done his career based on everything I've seen with what he's done to this point, people are going to talk about him in the same way they talk about Flutie. I think he's that good. I really do.
Just hope Chris Jones almost ruined him.
Oh.
And I hope that I'm glad he is able to work under a different coach, and hopefully with Cody there, it's going to be all clear skies.
Well, the other thing is, can the whole team put this whole name nonsense out of their heads?
No, chatter, constant. So
I hope they just ignore it, but I don't know.
How can you? The signs above the locker room.
I know, but anyway, GT, what do you think?
Anyway.
I think they're going to, I think, as I said, I think they have the second best defense in the league. I think that's going to make a huge difference, again, for a young quarterback that's learning a new system and growing as he goes. And especially when it's maybe not as bad as a lot of people thought it was in the receiving corps back in February, but it's still not in the top 3 or 4 receiving corps across the league by any means. I think they will have time, and they will be there in the fall. But then is it a young team that can put it together against those 2 more veteran teams in Winnipeg and Saskatchewan? And when you were talking about rookies losing your game, well, that comes down to coaches too. Rookie coaches will lose you games, so you can count on at least 1 or 2 major gaffes where you're shaking your head going, oops, and that could come back to bite them. They're going to be way better. There's no doubt about it. But whether they get there this year or whether they get there next year will be the question.
I agree. Their receiving core scares me. They've got 2 good Canadians, but Keon Julian Grant hasn't played a full season in the last 4, I don't think. And other than that, they've got a bunch of unproven Americans that are there. That D-line should be amazing because they brought their coach over with them too. But frankly, the one part of the one quarter they got in the preseason, they didn't look dominant. So hopefully that changes for them. From there, it's like you have both said, it's a team that's got to come together with it. How quickly do they do that? We'll say everything to them. I see them as having a lot of rookie coach type things like that cost them. They'll probably have a couple of good by winning streaks, I mean 2-3 games in a row they might win, then they'll lose a few in that, and they'll probably come out somewhere around 8-10 to 9-9, somewhere in there, I think. Because as good as the talent they brought in is, you still have to play together as a team. And I keep remembering back in the NFL, the Washington Redskins days, when they kept trying to buy themselves a Super Bowl and kept ending up in fourth in their division. So, alrighty. So then, look at the coincidence. It's me with Saskatchewan. And there, the big thing is what happens with that O-line. I was a little confused. I am sure that Sean McEwen and Philip Gagnon are gone for the year or the better part of it with their injuries, but for some reason they're on the 1-game list. They didn't get put on the 6-game. So is there something going on there that, I don't know, because that's it. The O-line there's two big questions with me. The O-line and then the two players they brought back from the NFL. And I've been saying this consistently for a while now. Trayvon Campbell and Sean Ray, if they both stay healthy and perform as, solid players anyway, and maybe star players, there's not a lot of other weaknesses on that team. If both of those or either of those give problems, that messes up their ratio with Campbell. They may end up having to put Nelson Lacombo out on corner to keep where they're going with the ratio, because they're looks like they're going to go 3 Americans on the O-line. And right now they're going 3 receivers, Canadian, but if somebody gets hurt, it's going to be interesting. If they stay healthy, if Harris has a healthy season, and that's another big one because he hasn't in the last 2. If he's in there all 18 games and the O-line is solid, other injuries will happen and stuff like that. But I think that in that scenario, they probably win the West by 2 games at the end of the season. If any of that other stuff goes wrong, then they'll be down probably in 2nd or 3rd behind either the Elk or the Bombers. And then the other thing that I'm going to say, just because, again, called it, I noticed that they are not carrying an American backup running back on the roster. They have one on the practice roster, but Thomas Berton Houdon is the only other running back, so he will be the official backup, and I'm impressed. He is a hell of a running back. Who wants to rain on my parade?
I'll just rain on it a little bit. I learned today that Trevor Harris is 39.
Yep. Breaking news.
Breaking news. He is almost middle age. I think it's just going to depend whether he can stay healthy or not.
Second oldest non-kicker in the league.
Yeah. The
only person older in the league than him is Stanley Bryant, who's not kicking the ball, which would be your man, GT.
Yeah, I don't know. Saskatchewan is very solid across the board. I think, again, I can see them winning the West. I think their coaching staff has come in the 2nd year now, so they've made those adjustments. They've learned. They've gotten through the ups and downs. They've been to a playoff. I see Saskatchewan as a really solid team this year. I really do. I just don't think, again, Trevor Harris can play 2 playoff games in a row.
Yeah. I mean, Corey Mace is just, they're lucky. He's probably one of the best coaches on the West Division.
I certainly love the way he coaches. Whether or not he makes bad decisions occasionally, he may, but his attitude going into coaching, what the culture he builds on a team is, I'm very impressed. Oh, and I'm just going to drop back one step to Edmonton because I forgot to mention one thing there. That's the other thing that could be important. As you mentioned, GT, that defense looks like it's really good. They have a first-year defensive coordinator.
Jason Sharp, right?
Yeah, he was a linebacker coach last year. How does he call a full defense? That's the only question there. I'm not saying it won't be good, but it's an unknown quantity.
All right, sorry, I have one more Elks thing I forgot to mention.
Here's how you call that defense. Boys, go play.
Yeah, okay. Sure, go ahead.
Sorry, my one Elks thing I forgot to mention is they are the only team that doesn't have a returning kicker or a veteran kicker. And their kicking has been terrible for quite a while now. So so we'll see how new guy does, but it's a big question mark.
Well, when you go into a season with your coach saying, we've got a kicker who's good inside the 35, which is what last year was, you got to wonder about that. All right, let's jump on. GT, tell us what you think of Winnipeg.
Winnipeg, okay. Solid, not solid enough. That's how I would classify them. They have a lot of good players. They have some players that are still top-notch, but I'm not sure they have enough of those guys anymore. They have they have some players that I think are on that edge that could slide this year. I just think their coaching staff is terrific. I think that they're a very solid team. They're a very scary team, and hey, you can't be the best till you beat the best, and nobody's beat them yet in the West for the last 5 years. So they're still the roadblock. And they will prove to be a very big roadblock this year, but I think it will be overcome. And that's how I see it.
Any thoughts, MJ?
I just, Mike O'Shea's greatest strength is his greatest weakness, and it's loyalty to players. Yeah, so I think you're right, some of these guys are on the cusp, and maybe on a different team they'd already be cut or be on their way out or have a diminished role, and he's going to stick with them. So it's kind of feel like the band's last tour. This is a ride or die year for them, and then after this, the band's breaking up.
There is that feel to it. I'm not going to go with the line I've used 3 or 4 times, but I'll just say you can never count them out. That's become fairly obvious as we've gone along.
Oh.
I had not a lot of notes on this. How will their new offensive coordinator work? Because it's an unknown thing. They brought in some very good new players. How well do they blend with the old? And I think it'll work well because of the culture on that team, but that's the question. And then the last thing, that goes back to the first one. The reason I never count the Bombers out is their ace in the hole, which is Coach.
Yeah.
You can disagree with some of the stuff he does, the gamesmanship he plays around things like depth charts. But he's got a culture that's winning. So that's me.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go on. And almost like I planned this because we're going to Hamilton, and whose turn is it? Go ahead, MJ.
Oh, Hamilton, I love you so much. Please don't play so awful this year. I think this is, if Bo's playing well, they'll do well. If Bo and Scott Milanovic are fighting again, this is not going to be great. I don't really think Tyler Powell is a CFL starter. I don't like him. I don't think he's a good successor for Bo. I mean, there's 2 receivers I'm really excited about. It's not Tim White. I'm really excited. O'Leary Orange, I really like him. Mm-hmm. And he hasn't got a lot of playing time, but I think he's one of those guys that's about to break out. And Kenny Lawler, I think, has to show well, and they're going to make sure he shows well because they spent $1 bajillion on him. Hamilton plays hard-nosed football. It's a hard-nosed East Division. They could easily win games if they just buckle down and do it, but it's going to be tough, and it's going to be in the trenches all season long.
I think MJ's covered off the things that I pretty much wanted to say in general. Will Milanovic keep his ego in check enough to just let Bo play? Then the other thing will be the defense. Their linebackers, I'm not really sold on, and even with who they brought in, I don't see a lot. That back end might be a little bit better. If they have an Achilles heel, that will be it. Plus, on the D-line, they've still got Casey Sales, but nobody else is really scaring me.
Yeah, I think their weaknesses are the defensive line and their linebackers initially. I think their linebackers get better, and I think Varasek is going to start there fairly quickly, and I think he's going to be really good, but he's going to make a lot of mistakes initially as well because he's young, very young, obviously a rookie. And I think their defensive line, as you just said, doesn't scare me at all. And their back end is better, a lot better, but we'll see.
The East is so strong now that you have to be elite to be competing in that division right now.
The team that Hamilton has, if they had this team 4 years ago, we'd be saying, they're going to walk away with the East Division. It has changed that much in that time. And I did hear on Duncan the boys on Three Down Nation last night speculating that Verisek may have to start this first game because of the ratio issues and then play around with the whole nationalized American to get Wilson in for reasonable number of plays at the Mac position. But I guess they're having trouble just meeting ratio.
Wow. That says a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, they're used to the defense. Like, they brought Chris Jones in at the end of the year to try and figure out the defense, and did he do anything? No. So hopefully maybe this year...
Except their defense completely turned around from as soon as they brought him in.
No, do not give him credit. Don't give him credit.
So he did something. Yeah.
No, I refuse to give him any credit for anything. I
think I'm going to be Switzerland on this one. Okay, I guess that brings me back to Toronto. And again, who knows, because the question there is, to me, is again their coaching and their scouting staff. They have lost reams of players in the last few years and rebuilt and done it again. And they're in that spot now. Their defense was, frankly, what held them into the first half of the season last year. If that's not good this year with the numbers that they've lost there, will the offense be able to pick it up? I don't know. But I do know Dinwiddie is a hell of a coach who finds a way to win. He'll find a way to use what he's got. So they will be right in the thick of it. I figure they'll be second or third, depending on how it rolls out with it. But the other thing, and maybe this is just me crossing my fingers and wishful thinking, because I don't like things that are bad for our league, and I still believe that the CFL mishandled the Chad situation terribly last year. I'm sitting here thinking, I'm looking at the way Horn played in the preseason. If Chad goes down at any point through this season, he may be done next year with Toronto. If Horn looks like what he could be, they may have a quarterback as good or better than Kelly there for cheaper, because they are aware of how much that hurt their reputation with the fans and with the league.
As a season ticket holder there, so I see them every week or almost every week, and have had for quite a few years. You're absolutely right. They just continue to find players. I'm worried that runs out. Obviously, I cheer for my team that just was that way for 10 years, where they just found players, and then it runs out. The well runs dry at some point. Will it have run dry already at this stage? I'm not 100% sure, but I haven't got the feel this year from training camp and from reports that I have from the last 2 years or 3 years, where it's been like, okay, they've got some guys. This year's more like, okay, yeah, maybe we hope we got some guys. I think their offense is fine. I think they made some great moves on offense. I think they're going to be fine there. I think their defensive line is their issue. I think Jeremiah Ojo is a guy that's going to make a big difference, and he's a guy that I would have as a breakout player by the end of the year on defensive line for them as a Canadian, and I think he's going to be really good. I think that, I don't see them. I think they're going to have issues in the back end. Their linebackers are really strong. The middle is really strong. But I think on either side of the linebackers, they're going to have issues, and they're going to have to score a bunch of points to be able to make up for the defense. And I think they can do that, but they haven't had a star-studded receiver core the last 3 years until you go, oh, who is this Polk character? Oh, who is this guy? Who is that guy? And then they find them. I'm not really concerned about the offense.
Oh, well, I don't want to pump the Argos tires, but I will say Ryan Dinwiddie can make something out of nothing. Like, just something out of nothing. Just infuriatingly good. And their quarterback situation, I think Kelly's on a very short leash for behavior-wise, and I think that they're not going to handle another black eye this year, and he's been warned.
Yep. Okay. So I guess then in our rotation, since we're running a rotation on this, we're Ottawa, and it's GT who gets first try.
All right. Okay, so as I said earlier, I think as Drew Brown goes, this team goes, because if Drew Brown's not there, they drop off drastically. Mm-hmm. And I think that's their big issue. Other than that, though, I think he is a great quarterback. I think he showed it in Winnipeg. You could see it in his few games when he did step up. And again, he had 2 years in Winnipeg to learn, not just one. So I'll make that statement as well. And then and then he showed growth last year, I think it's going to come down. He has to learn to do interviews. Did you see the interview he did from the sideline? One of the worst interviews I've ever seen in my life. My goodness, and then I thought about, well, maybe I'm trying to be nice, and I said, well, maybe he's thinking about things. Maybe he's being thoughtful. No, that's just a bad interview.
Okay, so my quick story about that is, like, on Instagram, back in January, they were asking players for their New Year resolutions, and, like, Stu Brown messaged back to me, he was like, one of his New Year's resolutions was have better interviews.
Well, he didn't. He did keep that resolution, that's for sure.
They showed that resolution, like, to him doing that, they're like, guess not.
Yeah, exactly. They say no resolution lasts past February, so. I love it.
But he plays much better than he speaks.
Yes.
So we'll be all right there. They added a lot with Eugene Lewis. That's a huge upgrade. Pickett, if he plays the entire year, because their whole defense changed when Pickett went down, and they really fell off at that point last year. And a lot of people talked about how they fell off, but they didn't tie it to Pickett being injured at that stage, and that makes a big, big difference. So I think if he's healthy the entire year, that defensive line is awesome. I think they made a great choice in bringing on William Fields as the DB and DC coach. So I think that's a huge improvement. And, yeah, I think they're going to be really good, and I think they're going to challenge. But as we said, it's going to be a knife fight and a bloodbath every single game in that division. And any one of those three teams is going to end up from, first to third. And Hamilton is going to be, again, I think that they could be second to fourth, but I think they'll be fourth.
If you had asked Eugene Lewis now if Ed Hervey lives in his head, and he would tell you no, but I think he does. And I think he's going to play with a big chip on his shoulder to show Ed Hervey, you made this huge mistake by letting me leave Edmonton. And I think Pimpleton's also going to have if he has another great year, it's going to be really fun watching the Redblacks.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't disagree with what you guys are saying. Like I said earlier, I feel like they're a bit of a team of destiny this year. Now, if Brown goes down, that I agree, that gets derailed. They've got quarterbacks that can maybe win a game or two if they get stuck in there, but not enough to keep them in the race, and definitely not if Brown is out for the playoffs. The other question is, of course, the back end, but like you said, GT, Darius Pickett makes a big difference. He's not technically in the secondary, but at that Sam linebacker, he's part of it. They practice there. They don't practice with the other linebackers. And we'll see what else they put together. Amari Henderson didn't look great in Saskatchewan last year, but he looked comfortable in the preseason with Ottawa. So I think he probably sticks. It'll be interesting to see the depth charts. And then the other question that I don't think it makes a huge difference in where they stand, but the other spot that they're really thin is Canadian receivers now that Mardner's gone down, trying to get that out there. So I think it's Keelan White was their first round, wasn't it? I've got that name right. I think that was it. So how quick does he develop? If he's one of these guys that picks it up in the first third of the season and starts looking like Mattel did for Toronto last year, not a huge contributor, but when they needed him, he could seriously add to the offense, then that will help them too. But I think you're both right in saying that there's probably about three teams I can think of, maybe four, that if they lose their quarterback are not in as good a shape as they'd like to be, despite who they've got as backups. And Ottawa is one of those. So we're almost done. MJ, you get to talk about Montreal. You can do it in French if you want, but I won't understand.
Imagine. This will be without air horns, so it'll be nice and quiet in the stadium. Alouettes. You just never count them out, can you? Davis Alexander, we'll see. He looked good last year. Whether he can carry a team as this number one starter, and whether it'll come down to whether he can handle the pressure of being the number one starter, and whether McLeod Bethel Thompson can just play football instead of shooting his mouth off and getting fined. One of my hot takes that I said on Blue Sky was that McLeod Bethel Thompson's going to get suspended one game because he's going to take it too far this year. I just. So we'll see. I don't think Jason Moss is going to have he's not going to put up with it for very much. So we'll see. We'll see. Phil Pott looks good. Like I said, Marc-Antoine Dequoy is going to anchor their defense. Looks good. And see you in the finals, Montreal.
Mm-hmm.
See you there.
Yeah, I think I've said everything I need to about what I think about Montreal. I just think they're stacked. Front to back, top to bottom, left to right. They're just stacked.
Yeah.
I can see this being another year for Montreal.
I would agree with that. I'm unlike everybody else that I'm hearing say, well, it all comes down to Davis Alexander. That's the wild card. Can he perform or not? I'm not the least bit worried, because if he can't perform, McLeod Bethel-Thompson is a starting caliber quarterback. He's an upgrade over Cody Fajardo, in my opinion. And I think that if Edmonton had a defense last year, they would have been well within the playoffs. He's got a defense behind him. I see it as nothing but upside with Alexander, and if somehow he does struggle and they start getting in a point of seriously looking like they might get knocked out of the playoffs, they'll go to MBT and it'll be done. I don't see a weakness on that team. I really don't. It's, to me, the only question is, if Alexander struggles, how long does it take before they get to them? And then the other thing I was going to mention is I can't wait to see more of this kid. I'm going to mispronounce his name, but was it Theus or whatever, the fullback returner running back that they had in the preseason? He looked like a fun guy to watch.
Well, you're going to see a lot of him this week, because Stevie's got the second or third, whatever it is, that he's already on their injured list.
Yep.
So he's not going to be playing in the, as we talked about earlier, they made the move on the other guy. So we're back down to, I think Thies is going to get a lot of run, but he looked awesome. He was just running like a little round ball of hate, man. It was good to watch.
Oh yeah, he was interesting. I did hear that, not officially, but apparently Sean Thomas Erlington has been saying that he's been told that he's probably going to get the start this week. So, and I can see that with a veteran. Yeah, he is. And I mean, if he hadn't gotten injured that season in Hamilton, who knows where his career would have gone, because he never really got the chance after that.
Everyone plays well once they leave Hamilton.
Yeah. Mind you, Bo's been playing much better since he went to Hamilton after a rocky start, but you know.
He got benched.
Well, yeah, and then the year before when they had him running short yardage sneaks that they lose him for. Anyway, that's our take on the teams. That's our take on the teams, folks. I don't know if it helps you at all. We haven't really predicted where they're going to end up or anything, but that's all that we're going to go. So
next year we will consult my tarot cards.
Okay, hey, cool. I like that. It'll be that could be a good feature. We'll see where we go.
All right.
But for now, we're going to move on to just the last of the talking about the preseason. We're not going to bother going through all the games because, frankly, the only interest in the games this weekend was who made the roster, and now we know that. Or one rule about our talking about the preseason, we're not going to complain about CFL Plus anymore because they had a bunch more problems this weekend, but we'll let them learn from that for next year. That BC game, I said if there was a good coach in there and it was a regular season game, they could have tied that game because that play that they ran, as long as you've got a receiver who can kick, he got down to the 40 with everybody coming at him. If he punted it through straight down to the end zone and through, they would have got their 1 point and tied the game. But you have to get creative to do that, and they missed the chance because I was sitting there going, "Oh, please, that's the call I'm calling if I'm the coach." Anyway, there's that. Anything else you guys have from the preseason that we haven't talked about that needs to be put out there?
Yeah, I think we're done with preseason.
I'm done with preseason.
I love preseason, and I love when it's over.
Likewise, because it's football after however many months of no football. But I got to be honest, by the time I got to the second half of those games, I was watching them because I had to watch them because we do a show. But there were a couple of things that I'll just put out there for whatever that I noticed. So everyone knows, McMahon, the running back for Toronto, isn't McMahon. He's McMahon. He's come back and said this is the proper pronunciation of his name. So I think we have to respect that. And there's a tradition of that in the CFL actually. Cody Fajardo, apparently the proper pronunciation of his name is more Fajardo or something with more of a rolled R. Michael Riley came back as Michael Riley after his mother passed away, and she'd always called him Michael, not Mike, so he asked for that. And then I remember back in the day, too, there was a Winnipeg quarterback that went away as Ralph Brock and came back as Dieter Brock. So I don't know if anybody else remembers anymore, but it's not a new thing.
Wasn't even Zach? Wasn't his pronunciation changed at some point to Kalaris before? There's still a lot of people that say Kalaris. And so, yeah, there's that. And, yeah, there's been lots of those.
The other thing, I noticed that in the Ottawa game that Paul LaPolice really loves Tyree Adams as a quarterback. He could do nothing wrong, according to the color analyst in that game. If anything went wrong, it was the other player's fault. And then a couple of things that I think actually are worth mentioning, too. First of all, I noticed that the command center and the officials are doing the same thing this year that they did last year, that if there's a fumble or a potential turnover or whatever, they're letting the play run out, and then the command center make the decision. And I think in some ways that's really good, but I'm waiting to see what happens the first time someone gets a serious injury in that situation. And then, the play was dead.
The play in the Edmonton, BC game where it was 109-yard interception return for a touchdown that then was overturned and brought back to the 1 yard line. And that poor guy, did you see him after the return? He was gassed. I thought he was going to collapse on the sidelines after that run, and then to have it overturned all the way back was just heartbreaking, unfortunately.
And the injuries can happen there.
Sure, if he pulled something.
Yeah. Well, strangely enough, I remember the 2014 season where the Riders were, I forget what they were. I think they had 2 losses going into Labor Day and missed the playoffs because Durant was hurt in the Banjo Bowl, and that was on a play that the play was whistled dead, and a DN didn't hear it and hit Durant, and he was out for the season. Just saying, you leave yourself open to stuff when you let them keep playing.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last thing, and this just occurred to me, I think it was in the last game that I watched. It was probably in the Montreal Ottawa one because it was televised. And there was a play where they were on the 1 yard line coming out of the end zone. So they're as far back as you could get. And they took a illegal procedure penalty. And I thought that's the one spot where it's really not fair because you can't back them up anymore. And I was thinking, what the league should do in that is they should move the line to gain forward by that 5 yards. So it's not 1st and 10 on the 1 where you have to get to the 11. It's 1st and 10 on the 1, or 1st and 15 where you have to get to the 16-yard line. So that 5 yard penalty actually counts against them.
Or just be a loss of down even.
Well, it could be a loss down. Maybe you could go that way. But you think about it. If you're on the 6 and you take that penalty, you're back on the 1, and it's a 15 yards to get the first down. So the fact you can't move back, why not just say you still need your 15 yards?
Yeah.
My thought.
That's
anyway,
reasonable.
Hopefully it'll give people something to argue about. I'm sure there's lots of reasons against it. All right, so that means we need to get on to our predictions. And we've talked a lot about the team, so if you feel like it, go ahead and give us some reasons. Or if you want, you can just say who you think is gonna win the games. We start with Thursday night, Ottawa at Saskatchewan. Is it? Okay. That's right. Who do you think, GT? Who's going to take that one?
Tie.
Could be. It's Ottawa and Calgary are the teams that have ties. So.
Yeah, I'm picking a tie.
That's going to make it harder for us to, unless we both agree, for me to put something in the. I didn't see that one.
No, yeah, no, and I'm only saying that because these teams are so close, and this whole week is so close and we know nothing about any of these teams really because it's so early, right? I'm going to go with Saskatchewan, but I could go with a point difference, like 21-20 or some goofy thing, because it will be. I think they're all going to be really close games this week. I don't see any blowout.
We haven't even seen depth charts yet. I'm going to have fun trying to do fantasy this week because I'll be picking the team with seeing 2 depth charts. So we'll see. But, yeah. Okay, so Saskatchewan there, maybe by MJ?
I put Riders.
Okay. Then we move to Friday. Toronto in Montreal.
Yeah, 7:30 Eastern time.
You get to go first this time, MJ.
Alouettes.
Yeah, Alouettes.
Alouettes, okay. And now we get to the one where I figure it's kind of a lose-lose for me because I could lose a co-host whichever way I go on this. We've got Hamilton at Calgary. And I've got that at 7 o'clock Eastern. Does that sound right to you?
7 o'clock Eastern, yeah.
Yeah.
Who wants to go first?
I'll just say, I will own it. I'll own it. Ticats don't win in Calgary. I looked up the stats today. They are like either 1 for 19 or 1 for 20 in Calgary. They've lost their first 4 times they've opened the season in Calgary. They've lost. They're not. It's going to be the Stamps.
And I think there's the infamous 52-1 or whatever it was game in there too.
We don't need to talk about why. Why do you guys be like that?
Hey, you'll get used to it. I've noticed there's been 2 or 3 times in the first 2 weeks where GT's talked about something from the past, and it's always been where somebody blew out Saskatchewan. In that one Labor Day game, in that one final game.
So shady.
Yeah. You know what? This is another one I'll take a tie. Because again, I have no idea.
It'll be Stamps. Ticats don't win in Calgary.
Okay. Well, we need to for the balance, you're going to have to pick.
I know. So I'll take the Stampeders, and you can make the decision on that.
Okay. Well, no, because you both picked the Stamp stuff right now. But I am the dissenting one. I know everything. I know everything that you guys have been saying, and I know the history and all of that. But Calgary, like they said, 12 new players on defense. That team, as good as they are, and that they win in Calgary and they do amazing things there. But I think it's too big of an ask right now. Hamilton has also got stuff going on. This is going to get him. Spoiler alert for my fantasy games. I'm probably going with Bo or VA, and I think it's Bo because he has better receivers at this point, more proven receivers than VA does, and I think that inexperience and Calgary learning to play together will make the difference. So I'm going Hamilton, but our pick is Calgary because you guys both took it.
They can't
I know.
win there.
I know. And then the last one, we've got the Elk at BC for the Lions, and it's a 7 o'clock start here, so 10 o'clock Eastern.
Correct.
Who goes first?
I said Elks.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to go Edmonton.
And I'll make it unanimous. I think that at this point they're better. Okay. I think that's about done it. I will remind anyone who cares, I will on Thursday by noonish BC time, once I've seen hopefully 4 step charts, I'll do the Old Man Play CFL Fantasy show that I did last year, giving my advice there. I'll get the actual stats out from last year to give myself the credibility because I wasn't in the top 10 or even the top 100, but I think if I remember right, I was in like the top percentile. I was in the top 1% because there are thousands and thousands of players. So I was doing something right. You might want to come in and check out what I have to say on that. Watch for it. It'll be posted up here on the podcasts or on YouTube. And I think that wraps us for the night other than any closing thoughts. How about from you, GT? Anything to say? And where can the folks follow you to learn more of this exciting stuff you put out here?
All right, so it's at GT Barnum on Blue Sky, and I'm so glad it's June, and I'm so glad we're playing football. Go Stamps.
Woo! Yes. Okay. MJ, your insights are available where, and what are we doing?
All right, you can follow me at Sports and Plants for all my hot takes. And go Ticats. Please be good this year.
Okay. And you can get me at Oldman-SAC on Blue Sky. You'll also find me as, R Oldman Shouting Clouds, I believe, on the CFL Reddit. And we do have now an X account that we're using just strictly to communicate with the fantasy league that I'm in, but that is just the CFL Outsiders, at the CFL Outsiders on X. So if you want to hit us up there, you can too. The email for the show is oldman, all one word, .shoutingatclouds, all one word, at shaw.ca and those will all be in the show notes again. So that's about it. Please subscribe. Help us grow the show here. If you like this, subscribing really helps the almighty logarithms on YouTube and on the podcatchers and that. So subscribing helps. So if you like us, subscribe, turn on your notifications so you don't miss anything. If you only watch it once in a while, or even if you're kind of meh, subscribe and don't put the notifications on. It doesn't hurt anything and it helps us out a lot. So please do that. And then lastly, we've been getting some very good comments, and I appreciate all the kind words that are out there, but there's also some very informative stuff too. So please keep the comments going. We love those. We like to hear what you have to say. And that's it. Signing off. So for GT and MJ, this is Old Man saying, get the hell off my lawn.